Emily Cartwright was a newlywed chasing a dream honeymoon in the Maldives. Aarav Sen was a hotel worker chasing a woman he refused to lose, but when their secret affair collided with her luxury marriage, only one of them would leave the island alive. Emily Cartwright was the picture of elegance, poise, and ambition. At just 29 years old, she had already built a solid reputation as a successful travel blogger and social media influencer. Her life seemed perfect to those watching from afar: luxury resorts, branded collaborations, and a fairy tale romance with Nathan Scott, a 34-year-old tech entrepreneur from London. Their relationship had moved fast, and just a year after meeting at a charity gala, Nathan proposed during a trip to Santorini. Less than 6 months later, they were married in an opulent ceremony in Dubai. The internet was flooded with envy, inducing photos of their desert wedding filled with rose petals, gold accents, and a guest list peppered with influencers and minor celebrities. Everyone thought Emily had found her happily ever after. But Emily's heart wasn't where her photos claimed it was. What her followers didn't know, what even Nathan didn't know, was that Emily had been hiding a secret. Nearly a year before her wedding, during a solo trip to Goa, India, she had checked into a small family-run hotel for a travel feature. There, she met Aarav Sen, a charming and soft-spoken front desk manager who had ambitions of someday opening his own guest house. He wasn't rich, and he wasn't famous, but he was attentive, intense, and unfiltered in a way that Emily hadn't experienced before. Their chemistry was immediate, and what started as a fling soon turned into something deeper. Even after returning to London, Emily and Aarav stayed in touch through secret calls and late-night messages. She returned to India twice under the pretense of work trips, each time staying with Aarav, promising him things would be different soon. Aarav fell deeply in love, convinced that she would choose him over her polished life back home. But Emily lived in two worlds, one where she was adored by a man who could give her anything money could buy, and one where she was wanted by someone who made her feel alive. When Emily announced her engagement to Nathan, Aarav was devastated. He begged her not to go through with it, but she insisted it was the right decision. She told herself it was practical. Nathan could provide stability, security, and a future most only dream of. Yet even as the wedding approached, she kept messaging Aarav. She told him things she probably didn't mean, that she loved him, that she wished things were different, that she'd find a way to see him again. After the wedding, Emily chose the Maldives for their honeymoon. Nathan thought it was just another beautiful destination, perfect for relaxing and showing off their newlywed bliss. But the choice wasn't random. Emily had already contacted Aarav weeks earlier, convincing him to apply for temporary work at the resort they would be staying at. She said she wanted to see him, just once, maybe for closure. Aarav agreed without hesitation. He forged documents, borrowed money for the trip, and secured a short-term job using a fake name. He believed this was their chance to finally be together. Emily, on the other hand, never imagined what that decision would lead to. The second chapter of Emily's carefully concealed double life began the moment she stepped foot on the resort island in the Maldives. From the outside, it looked like the ultimate romantic getaway. A private villa over turquoise waters, spa treatments, and candlelit dinners under swaying palm trees. For Nathan, it was everything he'd promised her, a week of luxury and intimacy after months of stressful wedding planning and media attention. But for Emily, it was something else entirely. It was a collision course with the past she hadn't let go of. Aarav had arrived on the island 2 days before the couple. Using a fake name and falsified references, he had taken a position as a temporary server for private villas. The resort, known for its elite clientele and discreet service, didn't scrutinize short-term hires closely. To management, he was just another seasonal worker, quiet and competent. No one looked at him twice. He stayed in the modest staff quarters on the far end of the island and kept to himself, but every minute he waited, watched for her. Emily spotted him on their second evening. It was during a private dinner Nathan had arranged on the beach. She looked up from her plate and saw Aarav standing in the shadows, helping clear another table nearby. Her face didn't show shock, just a flicker of recognition so brief no one else noticed. But Aarav did. He saw her eyes widen, then look away just as quickly. Later that night, Resort cameras captured Emily leaving her villa barefoot around 3:00 a.m., disappearing into the dense palm grove behind the staff bungalows. No one could say exactly how often they met over the next few days. There were gaps in surveillance footage, quiet moments when Emily would vanish for short walks while Nathan napped or went snorkeling. Resort employees noticed her demeanor was off, distracted, cold, and at times visibly agitated. Nathan brushed it off, thinking she was tired or jet-lagged. In truth, Emily was caught between two lives, and the cracks were beginning to show. Aarav was growing more intense with each meeting. He believed she had chosen this resort not just to see him, but because she wanted to be with him again. He told her he'd saved money, that they could escape together, that she didn't have to return to London or to Nathan. But Emily was no longer the woman he remembered in Goa. She had changed, molded by a different world of status, appearances, and power. Aarav didn't fit that world, and deep down he knew it, but he refused to accept it. Emily, too, was conflicted. Part of her still longed for that reckless passion they once shared, but the reality of what she had now, a wealthy husband, a high-profile life, made her hesitate. Every promise she had whispered in India now sounded like a mistake. Aarav was no longer a secret escape. He had become a dangerous reminder of a life she no longer wanted to claim. What neither of them realized was how close everything was to unraveling. The island was small. The secrets had nowhere to hide, and someone, whether staff or guest, was bound to notice something they shouldn't. The morning of the 5th day started like any other on the island. Quiet, sun-drenched and filled with the gentle sounds of waves lapping against the shore. But by 7:00 a.m., that calm was shattered when Nathan reported Emily missing. He told the resort staff that he had woken up to find their villa empty. Her sandals were by the door, her phone and passport untouched on the bedside table, and her white robe still draped across the chair where she had left it the night before. The door had been locked from the inside, but the sliding glass door facing the ocean was slightly ajar. At first, no one panicked. Guests often woke early to watch the sunrise or take a walk along the beach. Staff assumed she had gone out alone and would return soon. But as the minutes turned into hours and breakfast remained untouched, concern began to grow. Nathan's calm began to break. He paced the lobby, made frantic phone calls to her family in the UK, and demanded answers from resort staff who had none to give. By late morning, a formal search had begun. The island, though beautiful, was small and contained. Resort employees combed the beach, the walking trails, and even the shallow waters. Divers were sent into the ocean to check beneath the villas. Drones were deployed. Still, no sign of Emily. There was no note, no evidence of struggle, and no logical explanation. It was as if she had simply vanished. The Maldivian police were alerted, and a preliminary investigation was launched. They searched her belongings, reviewed CCTV footage, and interviewed staff and other guests. That's when things started to take a darker turn. Security footage revealed something odd. Emily had left the villa in the early hours of the morning, long before sunrise, wearing only a thin dress. She had exited through the back door and walked toward the direction of the staff quarters. She never returned. Investigators grew suspicious. The resort prided itself on privacy, but even in such a secluded paradise, people didn't disappear without leaving behind clues. Then came the discovery that raised even more alarm. One of the temporary staff members had also gone missing that morning. A man hired just a week earlier under the name Ravi Patel was nowhere to be found. His bed in the staff quarters hadn't been slept in, and his work uniform had been left behind in a storage closet. His employee file contained only a mobile number, now switched off, and a forged ID. When the guest registry was cross-checked against the employee log and photos were compared, it didn't take long to identify Ravi Patel as someone else entirely. Authorities now had a name, Aarav Sen. News of the missing tourist bride and the mystery man spread quickly. The resort went into lockdown and rumors swirled among guests. Some said it was a lover's quarrel gone wrong. Others whispered of foul play. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the island's beauty faded under a heavy shadow. The honeymoon was over. What began as a romantic getaway had become a crime scene. 2 days after Emily's disappearance, the turquoise waters surrounding the resort gave up their secret. A local fishing boat, trawling just beyond the island's coral reef, radioed in a report of something tangled in their nets. It wasn't a fish. It was a body, floating face down, caught in seaweed and fishing lines. The lifeless figure was pulled from the water and transported to the nearby dock. It was Emily. News traveled fast. The resort was sealed off completely, and police arrived by boat and helicopter. Nathan was inconsolable when he received confirmation. The dream honeymoon had ended in tragedy. Forensic teams began their work immediately. Though the body had been in the water for over 36 hours, conditions had slowed decomposition. What they found shocked even the most seasoned investigators. Emily's body bore signs of a struggle. Faint bruises on her wrists and upper arms suggested she had been held down. The most telling mark was a deep bruise around her neck, consistent with strangulation. But the autopsy revealed that her lungs contained seawater, which meant she had still been alive when she was pushed or dragged into the ocean. She hadn't drowned by accident. She had been murdered. Clutched in her right hand was a single strand of long, black hair, not her own. Investigators believed she had fought back, grabbing whatever she could in the chaos of her final moments. This piece of evidence would later become critical. With a confirmed homicide and a missing resort worker tied to the victim by past history, the hunt for Aarav Sen intensified. His forged identity had only delayed authorities for so long. Airport security footage showed no trace of him boarding any departing flight. No local boats had reported offering rides to unauthorized passengers. It was as if he had vanished from the island, just as Emily had days earlier. Then came the break, through no one expected. On the third night of the investigation, one of the kitchen staff reported hearing faint coughing noises while putting away supplies in a back storage area behind the resort's main kitchen. It led to a rusted grate near the ground, half covered by an old tarp. Beneath it, investigators discovered a locked hatch leading to a long-forgotten storm shelter, used years ago for emergency cyclone sheltering and since abandoned. Inside, crouched in the shadows and weak from dehydration, was Aarav. He had been hiding underground for over 36 hours, surviving on stolen water bottles and leftover food. He was arrested on the spot and taken into custody. His capture stunned everyone. The idea that a man could commit murder and then hide just meters away from the crime scene undetected was something out of a nightmare. Authorities were now faced with a chilling question: was this an act of passion, or had Emily's death been planned? And why, after everything, had Aarav stayed so close instead of fleeing? His silence during interrogation only deepened the mystery. What had really happened between the two lovers in those final moments? And why had paradise turned deadly? The trial of Aarav Sen became one of the most talked-about criminal cases in recent years, captivating audiences across continents. The story had everything: a beautiful tourist bride, a luxury honeymoon turned fatal, a hidden affair, and a suspect who had literally crawled out of the shadows. As the courtroom filled with journalists, lawyers, and grieving family members, the prosecution began laying out a timeline of betrayal, obsession, and murder. Aarav did not deny the affair. He admitted that he and Emily had rekindled their relationship during the honeymoon. His version of events painted him as a heartbroken lover, not a killer. He claimed that Emily had initiated the secret meetings, that she had promised to leave her husband, and that they had argued only when she confessed she couldn't go through with it. According to Aarav, Emily had become overwhelmed with guilt and panic. In his words, she had stormed out during one of their meetings near the beach, and in a moment of despair, jumped into the ocean. He said he had tried to save her, but couldn't reach her in time. Fearing he would be blamed, he ran and hid. The court wasn't convinced. The forensic evidence painted a much darker picture. The bruises on Emily's body showed signs of restraint, not a fall. Her fingernails had traces of skin cells that matched Aarav's DNA. The strand of long black hair found in her hand left no room for doubt. There had been a physical struggle. An expert testified that her injuries indicated sustained force, likely caused by someone attempting to subdue her. The water in her lungs proved she had been alive when submerged. It wasn't a spontaneous suicide, it was a deliberate killing. Further damning evidence came from Aarav's digital trail. Messages he had sent to Emily in the weeks before the trip were filled with possessive language. He spoke of not letting her go, of making sure they'd be together no matter what. One particularly disturbing message, sent just 4 days before Emily's death, read, "If you walk away from me again, I won't forgive you." Though not an explicit threat, prosecutors argued it showed intent and emotional instability. The defense tried to present Aarav as a man driven to desperation by love, abandoned by a woman who had used him and discarded him. They painted Emily as manipulative, claiming she had led him on for months and used the honeymoon as a cruel final goodbye. But the jury didn't see it that way. They saw a man who had inserted himself into a married woman's life, crossed borders under a false identity, and hidden for days after her death without seeking help or showing remorse. After a tense 3-week trial, the verdict came swiftly. Aarav Sen was found guilty of premeditated murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Emily's family wept silently as the decision was read. Nathan, her husband, sat motionless, his dream life now reduced to ash and memory. The case served as a grim reminder that even the most beautiful places could hide the darkest intentions. What was meant to be a celebration of love became a haunting tale of obsession and death. Emily Cartwright's final days were spent surrounded by turquoise water and white sands. But underneath the paradise, a storm had been brewing all along.